So, Phil, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you started your career in software testing?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, basically, I kind of fell into it, and but it kind of suited me, I guess, because I went to when I was at uni, I was doing physics, and then kind of in a similar way to how I went to university in the first place, which is just like it is just the path you kind of go down because in my A levels and all my mates went to uni, and you got a grant back then for going to university. So I was like, okay, cool, don't have to get a job and go to uni. And then I started to do a PhD because of the same thing, because it's like fill in a form, you get a grant and you do a PhD. Probably the wrong reason for doing a PhD, but never mind. You're young at the time and you don't know what you want to do and where you want to go. So started to do that, and then decided basically the route of academia was just not for me. You know, it was like a lot of long hours, and when I was looking forward to options and opportunities within that area, I was thinking that's not really how I want my life to be, basically. So I decided, and it wasn't going great as well, because I wasn't focused and giving it the time and attention that it needed. So I quit, and I got a job. And at the time, it was kind of a little bit difficult, because when you drop out, it doesn't really matter what it is or anything. It's still a difficult choice to make for change, especially kind of as at the time you try and ask for advice and things. And a lot of people, especially a lot of people are older, and you're more susceptible to that kind of stuff when you're younger. Say, you know, you've started, so finish and get your qualifications and all of that. But anyway, I quit, and yeah, and I kind of went into software testing because I guess coming from a scientific background, it kind of does make you a bit more analytical, and you look at creativity, problem solving, finding different solutions and working through things. So that kind of translated basically into software testing. So that's kind of how I started, really. And then yeah, for the next kind of, well, probably 10 years, I was working in different businesses doing software testing as an employee. So it was a little bit of an unusual entry point. I mean, it did have benefits of, you know, as with anything, you kind of always try and see it as glass half full. So rather than say I was quit and I'm failing at it or whatever, I tried to picture it that actually, no, I'm going down a particular road and it's not the right road for me. So I want to take control of it. And I want to take control of my life and where I want to take my career. So that's the way I kind of pictured that. But yeah, so then I did that for 10 years, and after that started contracting.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it's particularly a bad thing to do that, or to not finish a formal degree.
Yeah.
Richard Branson and Elon Musk and all sorts of people have said it's not necessarily the way for everybody to go and finish. In fact, I started an MSc and didn't finish it as well. So perhaps we've got something a little bit in common. So what lessons did you really learn from software testing?
Well, the thing is, with software, funnily enough, a lot of the stuff in there is actually does derive kind of to a lot of stuff that happens in life as well. Because in testing, you kind of talk about continuous testing right the way through, and improving things as you go. And there is a saying, I can't remember who says it, but continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection. And that's something that's always happening in life as well, because, you know, it's kind of an infinite spectrum of things that can happen, with some things basically being more probable. So yeah, kind of did learn all of that. And as well, kind of the whole analytical side and questioning things and doing things differently and working in teams and all of that. There's a whole raft of transferable skills that anybody could have in pretty much any career path. It doesn't have to be software testing, that you can transfer from one career to another. So, you know, I'd say, you know, kind of don't be afraid of moving from one kind of career to another, which is essentially what I'm doing at the moment. But yeah, and it could well be that that kind of questioning things that helped me move from basically being a permanent employee to being a contractor, which I did for the following 10 years, which for me, I thought was absolutely brilliant, because you get to go in, you deliver the service, and you get paid for your skills and expertise that you deliver, and then you run that small business, and then you go home. And it was absolutely brilliant from a perspective of you don't get involved in the wider things happening within the business. And, you know, you can go in and deliver that service and then just basically live the rest of your life however you want it to be. And as a contractor, you actually get paid more as well. And that's one thing that I've learned, and a mistake that I've made not that long ago was sort of going back into permanent employment, because perhaps going slightly off piste here, but like if you're a permanent employee on PAYE, you know, you're taxed quite heavily, and your remuneration initially isn't as great as when you're like contracting and consultancy and stuff like that. So then if you move into being a contractor and you're running your own business, then you've got a small business there, and you can decide on your remuneration and all of this sort of stuff. So that does come with its benefits as well. And then ultimately, ideally, the ideal goal would be then to move into kind of like passive income, which traditionally is working in a job for years and years and years and then getting a pension. But obviously now, with like the internet and so much stuff, there's loads of different ways of earning an income, multiple different streams of income, which is kind of what I'm moving into at the moment.
Yes, and I think that's something that's happening generally, isn't it, in the world, that less and less people are in permanent jobs, more and more people moving more quickly, changing jobs, those kind of things. One of the things that really resonates for me, I hope you don't mind just saying for a second, that because of course I've had an industry, been in the industry for 30 years as well, software, but on the other side of writing software.
Yeah.
And in the first few years I worked within a company, but we worked with various different customers. And one of the things that I actually heard several times over from different customers was, our industry is quite messy. It's much worse than everybody else's, because everybody else is just, most industries seem to be really well organized. But it turns out, when I saw inside them, so what was happening, I realized, was when you're writing software and trying to automate things, you're trying to clean the processes up as well. So it's fascinating how software is actually a mirror, that you have to work with a lot of different problems in the world.
Yeah, totally, yeah. And the other thing, as I'm sure quite a few people know, is that one of the things that I found was ultimately I was kind of on a bit of a path where it was kind of initially a path of what I would call external validation. And this was definitely a mistake that I made, and definitely something that I tried to learn from. But certainly when I was younger and starting off in my career, and people that, you know, loved you very much and wanted the best for you were always saying, I'll be proud of you when you get this, when you achieve that, and you've got to have this and do that. And I began to accumulate those things, and then essentially got to the top of what that I thought would basically be success, and actually found it very, very empty. And that's when I was like, oh my God, what the hell is all this about? And that's when I basically started to really question things. Am I doing the right thing? And kind of looking back at it, I think, well, I don't know whether it was a mistake or not, because at the time I didn't have any other reference points. But I guess the lesson from that, or the takeaway, or whatever you want to call it, is to try and make sure that you don't get trapped in the same situation again, or you don't go down that path again. And because that would be a mistake, basically. But yeah, so I tried to, after that point, shift more towards doing things that I find more authentically fulfilling. And absolutely, if you're providing a service, you know, it should come with a market rate of remuneration and all of this. And if you're delivering things that are solving problems for other people, then absolutely, you know, that service is a viable service to deliver to businesses and individuals and everything. But it's important to do something that you enjoy, I guess, because you spend more time.
Well, perhaps are you saying that you in the early days you probably took too much notice of what other people expected of you?
Yeah, totally.
They wanted to do it, and I think that's what we're trying to do with potentialization, is to help people realize that if they follow their dreams much more and the things that they're really interested in, that's actually going to work out much better for them.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. I mean, it's sort of a difficult balance, because like well, certainly when I was younger, I didn't believe in myself as much, so I believed more in what other people were saying, like you were saying. But I guess in those situations, a really good thing to do would be to have a mentor, or to have role models and people that are perhaps a bit further ahead than you and all that sort of thing. So, because sometimes it literally does take somebody else's faith in you before your own faith kicks in. So, it's interesting. And the other thing, I guess, of course, is like it. I'm probably in a very different situation now, in terms of, I'm not quite sure what you want to call it, but like stability or financial or whatever. And when you're a bit younger and you're setting out and you know, loads of bills are coming in and you don't have so much behind you or whatever, then you've kind of got to go with that path. And also you just don't know what your plan is. And I still don't know what my passion is at all. But I've kind of given up trying to find it in a positive way, in that I just decided, right, I'm just going to follow my curiosity, just follow whatever makes me curious. Because, you know, like a passion sounds kind of like a really big aha moment, and you go, right, I'm here to do this. Well, I'm not really sure that many people specifically find that. You're very lucky if you do. But if you follow your curiosity of what makes you curious and what sparks that energy, and I guess kind of then the passion is the energy that you get from following that curiosity. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. What path it's going to take me on, I've no idea. We shall see.
Part of that is actually that you can actually become trapped with money, and that's one of the other talks we'll have in the future with Steve Conley, who was originally in banking, and he's trying to change the financial advice market to make it much more effective for individuals. So it really is a holistic picture of getting everything in our lives organized, isn't it? I've got on the list of questions here that you've actually done a few interesting random things over the years.
Yes.
One of them being on, you want to tell us how this happened? You actually ended up presenting a Malaysian TV cooking show.
Yeah, that was actually indirectly Sue, I think, that managed to start that one, because it was actually through Potentialisation. Back, as you sort of mentioned earlier, when this used to be a meetup group in Manchester, and you had one where you just asked people that came sort of regularly-ish to present. And I think Sue asked me, and I said, sure, yeah, you know, I'll do a bit of a talk. And it was a talk, and it went down really well. And then somebody in the audience, it was Julie McGann, who runs Unicorn Academy, coaching academy. She came up to me and she said, that talk's really good. How much do you charge for that talk? So I sort of mentioned, oh, would you come and do a workshop with me at Sony down in London? So I said, absolutely, sure. Yeah, no problem at all. And then I put that on my LinkedIn, not LinkedIn, it was Facebook back then when I used to use that. And my friend Norman, I mean, he's around all over the show, but has got some Malaysian restaurants, and he's actually very famous in Malaysia. And he was commissioned to do a series in the UK of what it's like cooking in different places, like tea shops, small restaurants, and at home, and all that sort of stuff. So off the back of that post, he got in touch with me and he said, oh, will you do that and do a bit of a chat on what you were talking about at Sony, and we can do this Malaysian TV cooking show. And that's definitely a good thing to do, was, you know, if something feels good and if it feels right, just say yes, and just go for it. But you know, it's got to feel right. Don't just say yes to please other people and stuff. But that was really good fun. And you know, the bizarre thing with that was, I just took it as completely normal. I was like, oh yeah, you know, Sue asked me to do this talk, and then Julie asked me to present this workshop, and then Norman said, fancy doing this TV show, and I said, sure, why not? But then when you sort of mention it to people, oh yeah, I did a Malaysian TV cooking show, they're like, what? So I guess it is quite random, but yeah.
And have you got anything else that you've done at random things, different things as well?
Yeah, so
I think that will be hard to beat.
Yeah, definitely. The only other really random one was probably there was a Hollywood film that was just really bizarre, because when I was contracting, I'd just take a little bit of a break between contracts. And my friend Jackie said, why don't you subscribe to this extras thing? And they sent me a few through, but it was all very much like, you know, local Manchester things. And then they sent one through saying that this Hollywood people that make these films in Hollywood or whatever, they've been given some funding to make the film in Holyhead, so it wasn't as glamorous as Hollywood, but hey, and to fly all the stars and everybody over to Holyhead and film this big budget film in Holyhead. Would you be interested in being an extra in that? And it's possibility it might get into the cinema. And I was like, yes, please, why not? So, and I just did it for the sheer fun of it, and it's very interesting actually when you listen to.
I hear you there. I don't know if I can mute you automatically, or you mute.
Cool.
There we go. Thank you. Sorry.
Yep. So I forgot what I was saying now. Yeah, but it's very interesting actually. The dynamics on a film set, and even the dynamics of the Hollywood stars, or all of it. But they weren't exactly, but and it's just the psychology behind it. I thought was absolutely fascinating as well. I mean, bless them. They were kind of always having to be on show, and they were always. So it's definitely not as glamorous lifestyle as it's made out to be when you see things on TV. That's for sure.
Absolutely. So from all those different things you've done, have you got anything else, any little tips or tools that you'd use for making the most of those lessons from difficult situations?
Yeah, well, I guess I'm not really sure. I just think at the time you might not really see it. That's for sure. The example I was thinking of there is the thing that I'm living off quite humbly at the moment is a couple of little property rental incomes. And that only really started because I bought my first house years ago now, and I went into debt for the deposit, and I put the rest of the deposit on 2 credit cards and picked up the keys on Friday and got made redundant on the Monday. And I was like, I've got all this debt and I don't know how I'm going to pay mortgage for the first month. And so I actually had to end up getting lodgers in that first house. And at the time I was kind of like really hacked off about that, because I was looking forward to having getting my own space and all this sort of stuff. But as it turns out, and I couldn't afford to get an agent or anything like that. And you just had to do it and had to discover what you were doing as you're going along. And that actually gave me a little bit of a model to rent properties out, but I didn't know it at the time. And the gift there is that's while I'm just taking the break from and building out what I'm doing next. That's what I'm living off at the moment. As it happens as well, I kind of decided that the single parent families are actually the best lodgers, and they've been there for a long time. So I do charge very reasonable rents, but I also like the fact that you can you charge affordable rents, single parent families, because they've got bigger fish to fry than hiking up the rent and stuff like that. So and that's a good little ecosystem that seems to be working quite well. But yeah, I would just say, I mean, I don't really kind of know, but it is things like, get good supportive friends, or good supportive friends and stuff like that that will kind of like elevate you up. I'm very lucky. I know loads and loads of wonderful people, and that is just brilliant, because I guess ultimately we're all kind of a bit of a product of our environment. And I've learned that the hard way when you've been around some less savoury people as well. But if you've got really good group around you, that'd be absolutely brilliant. And putting positive people around you that will build you up. And like we kind of mentioned earlier, role models and mentors, just brilliant. And it can be people that are far out. Problem with them is they're so far out. So sometimes it's also good to have somebody that's perhaps just a few steps ahead of you, because then they're more accessible, and also there's what you're going through at the moment, or how you're building things up, is fresher in their mind. And then I guess kind of the other thing as well is that I would definitely recommend is never stop looking for what resonates with you. I think that I mean, I don't know how we'll be after COVID, but certainly before COVID, I just think that we were kind of a lot more in a situation where it was like, just do one thing and stick at it. And you're almost, or certainly some people, you know, you may feel a little bit of a failure if you quit, or if you stop, or if you want to change, where that's not true. It's kind of like, when you keep changing and you keep moving towards things that resonate with you more, you just kind of become more who you really are. So then you can deliver better service generally. So yeah, and just keep learning and growing with that. And ideally try and find something that you're passionate about, that you don't want to retire from. I know so many people that want to retire from work, and that was definitely me when I was doing software testing. You know, yeah, and then that could be basically very fulfilling. And I guess as well, which is don't give yourself a hard time. That's why I changed the title of this talk as well, because I initially titled it "Learning from Mistakes," and then I had to kind of change it, because I thought, actually, it's just learning from experience, like good experience or not so good experience and stuff. Because, you know, with my knowledge and understanding that I had at the time, I'm not really sure what I would have done differently. And I think there is a saying of some sort that's basically like, you know, everybody wants good advice, but to go through good advice, you've got to experience the bad advice, or something like that. I think so. Yeah.
I'm thinking I'm starting to understand the title a little bit more now about the sandpaper. Because I imagine being excited and wanting to move into your first house and it feeling really rough, literally like sandpaper. You have to share your house with lodgers and who are they going to be and all that kind of stuff. But actually that turns out into something that can make a big difference in your life. And I'm hoping in the system we can actually, in the web platform we're building, we can put kind of supportive and role model advice, which will then lead you to more people to help you with those things as well. So it's really inspiring to hear you saying some of these things. It's really good.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, the main model I use now, and anyone that's been around to my house will know I love my garden and that, but it's honestly, I just think a lot of it is all mindset. You know, set your mind on doing something, and if you're fearful about making any move, then do it in a strategic and educated way and everything, and get some goals that are bigger than your fears to help you move in that direction. But honestly, like, I generally think like the mind is like a garden, and when, you know, if it's full of a load of weeds and all that sort of stuff, but, you know, you've got to permanently keep cultivating it and nurturing it and all of this and everything, and you create it as you want it to be. Unfortunately, I think nature's given us some stuff in there as well, like an old tree called fear, that will always be there to some extent, but you've got to keep pruning it and stuff. Because the things like, you're only really fearful of two things, I think, which is which is a fear of falling and a fear of loud noises. So things like being fearful of public speaking and stuff is a learned fear. There are some good learned fears, like crossing roads and all, but yeah. So interesting stuff. Sorry, I'm waffling on now.
No, that's really good. Before we go into breakout rooms, your situation's a little bit different at the moment, isn't it? What's happening for you right now?
So I was doing like software testing for forever, and then I've just decided again that I'm going to. So absolutely, the last experience of that was that is that chapter closed. But you know, I've still got those skills and experience, so I might occasionally do the odd contract or something to top up. But what I really wanted to do was perhaps do what I was calling transition coaching, which is helping people make change, because a lot of people are fearful of change. And even what I've just gone through, if you like, in the last year, where knowing that you're not in the right job, and it might be a brilliant job for somebody, but not for me, and then getting all your ducks in line and going through that process, you know, so letting go and looking forward, and then understanding what really resonates with you and your key skills, and just taking 3 people step by step through that process as well. And of course, I've got dusted down my old tarot cards, which is great. So so I'm doing a few readings for various people and stuff. And then also helping with some affiliate work. So I've got quite a lot of contacts in the software testing industry. So I'm helping a business with introductions and introducing different software testing tools to different people, which is going very well actually. And then sort of doing associate work as well. So that's working with people that are coaches or training courses, and also the random fun things as well, like the TV show or whatever may come along. Yeah, so it's kind of like building out that portfolio, making sure that it's got focus, which is essentially on coaching and trying to help people to support to make positive changes in their lives. But also there's a nice mix of stuff in there to make it interesting and offer people a different variety of things. And a part of that is also going to be charity work. So I've always been a mentor for homeless people in Manchester, and donating money to charity and stuff like that. And then of course property rental, which is part of passive income. So that's good.
So perhaps when we come out of the meetup rooms in a few minutes, would you drop your LinkedIn or Facebook contact details? And if anybody wants to connect with you, they can do that. And your email if you want to.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, cool.
So that sounds fascinating. There's a lot of different things going on. So, and of course, you'll be the host for a few of these interviews with some of our great speakers on psychology, emotional intelligence, well-being, all that kind of stuff. Brilliant. So we hope to have some really interesting talks over the next few weeks. I think everybody's back again now. So from our group, I know Marie wanted to ask a question. Do you want to ask it yourself, Marie, if you want to unmute or?
Yes, I finally unmuted myself. I guess just from hearing everyone, it's really like a lot of interesting ideas, but how do you find your passion and how do you meet the right people? That was my questions.
Oh.
Phil, do you want to answer? But when you've done that, Julie in our group had a really good answer as well. If we're okay for a moment on that.
Yeah, I guess my my answer to that, because I still have got no idea what passion is, but I would absolutely say don't put too much pressure on yourself for finding a passion as such, and just kind of follow your curiosity, and just see where it takes you. And it's the old thing of basically just enjoy the process and see what it opens up. I knew someone ages ago, and they absolutely wanted to start a coffee shop, and then they started the coffee shop, and then decided it wasn't for them, because as much as they love drinking coffee, like me, you know, emptying out all the bins and everything else wasn't right. And then they actually, but they did, once they knew the supply chain and stuff like that, they then moved into wine tasting. And then right up until COVID, I'm not really sure what they do in COVID, but they ran wine tasting workshops and stuff. So it's about kind of just exploring the curiosity and taking action on that, and not putting any pressure on yourself to actually get to an end point, but enjoy the experience and just see where it takes you and what doors it opens up. And in terms of the people, it's about thinking about what it is that you want to do. So if it is that coffee shop or something, and then just like joining different meetup groups, perhaps, you know, if there is one for coffee lovers and one for improving yourself, such as Potentialisation, of course, and all of this sort of stuff, where you're going to find people that will resonate with whatever it is that you want to do. And the other thing is, don't be afraid of changing it. You know, keep on changing and just become more who you really are. I guess that's what I would say.
That sounds really good. One of the things I've heard, but I certainly don't know a huge amount, is that in NLP they talk about setting something into your mind. Do you know when you're in a room and you're busily having a conversation, but there's lots of people around you, you don't hear anybody around you, but if somebody then says your name, your brain hears it and your attention jumps to the other table in the cafe or whatever it might be. And they have a name for that. I'm not even sure what it is, but we'll probably have an NLP expert in and do us a talk in a few weeks' time, which I'm sure they'll tell us a lot more about that. And Julie, are you there? You had something that was really useful.
I don't know if it'd be useful for everybody, but
No.
I'd always wanted to be a psychologist. I don't really even know how I found out about the word, because that was in the 70s when it wasn't that particularly prevalent. And eventually got through the degrees and did the clinical training, and then I found myself miserable because it didn't seem very caring really, and it was just a bit miserable. I thought, oh, what do I do now? And I was jogging in the park, and I sat under a tree and just said help. And a couple of days later, my friend knocked a guy off his bicycle, and he was one of our tutors who turned out to be the guy who set up Oxford Psychologist Press, which is now known as the MBTI company. I stayed with them and got all my training with them about 4 or 5 years. I think he's a millionaire now, but I didn't pick up on that bit. But it was brilliant. And so I don't know. And I think it was because it was really in my mind, and I really cried out without even knowing what I was crying out to.
Another word for this is synchronicity. I read a book, The Celestine Prophecy, lots and lots of years ago. I don't know if people have read it. Fascinating book, but it kind of frames these kind of things in a spiritual way, but I'm sure the NLP people will put it in a much more practical, brain-oriented, neuroscience almost way. So yes, it's some really fascinating stuff. I wonder if we could pull any more questions in. Does anybody in particular want to ask a question?
Well, in our group, we were really interested in the tarot.
Oh, right. Yeah. So that's really interesting, actually, because you're talking about NLP and emotional intelligence and coaching and all of that sort of stuff. If you're talking to anybody, particularly in business, while that's got a good structure and you can get progress and all that sort of thing, actually what I found is people actually more really open up with tarot cards. And I only just did it, like signed up to do the course on a complete and utter whim. And it's brilliant. And it might be associated almost to some sort of stuff in NLP, but because it is just about putting some cards down as essentially a discussion starter of things that might happen, because it's but it's very visual, and you create almost like a story from it and that sort of stuff. Because, like, you know, going forward in the future, nobody knows what's going to happen, and it's an infinite spectrum of possibilities, if that makes sense, but some things are more probable. So it's putting options down that could, and seeing what that opens up to see what may come out to be more probable, something like that. But I'm going to call it philosophical futures.
So it's not fortune telling then?
No, it's not really, unfortunately. I think if you get really, really, really good at it, but then it is just different things in the future, with some things more probable. And I have used it to try and predict the lottery numbers, and that ain't one. so and maybe I'm still just a little bit more rusty.
In terms of more questions, if anybody doesn't want to ask them by unmuting and actually ask, feel free to drop any questions in the chat and I'll put them to Phil as well. But of course, if you do want to, if you're happy to open up your mic and take yourself off mute, please do ask any more questions.
Hello, everyone. Just wondering, Phil, do you have any recommendations of books or anything in particular, any kind of materials that have been really influential?
Yes, I've never actually read a book, actually, but I do listen to audiobooks, and there's loads of stuff, basically. So actually, what I really like at the moment is, as John was saying, which is NLP. But certainly, I actually like one called Big Magic as well, but I can't remember who that's by, just because of how it is in terms of a lot of the almost like stories or case studies in there are kind of like just people, you know, like there's one about a woman that she really wants to get into ice skating and she loves every minute of it and all that, but she doesn't end up becoming like a world champion, you know, because a lot of these things say, oh yeah, follow your dreams and you'll be world champion and stuff, but it's not. It's just about enjoying things, and just things like you know, Deepak Chopra is another really good one that I like. Yeah, so yeah, and I'm trying to think. I'll send you some. So we'll catch up, and we're on a call tomorrow, aren't we? So I'll have a think before then. And but yeah.
Another thing we can do is when we put this up on YouTube, we could put some comments in with any other books. I've just looked up Big Magic. That's by Elizabeth Gilbert. I actually bought that a few months ago. I haven't read it yet, so I'll have to put it nearer the top of the list.
Oh, do.
Growing list.
Yeah. And Marina, do you want to ask a question?
Hi, no, sorry, I just had a comment as you were talking about the tarot cards. I think, and maybe the psychologists who we have here on the call or have some sort of degree in psychology can confirm that there is a thing, a method called MAC. It is something like mental association cards. So what it does is that, let's say you have a burning question in you, you maybe deciding between options or something, and you sit down with this, well, in the fact it's a coach, a psychologist coach, and you mentally ask this question, you concentrate, and then you forget about that, you pull a card, you put it in front of you, and then you just speak up what you see, and different people notice different things. You know, you describe, oh, these are this and this and this, and if you don't have anything to say, then this coach will prompt you like, well, what colors do you think people are happy in the picture, something, and that kind of helps to resolve the question you had. After that, just talking about this picture, you then might have a kind of like,
yeah, totally. And it's kind of like sometimes when you start to talk about something, the solution comes to you as well. It's that sort of thing. So because I've quite often gone to people and said, oh, can I just ask a question? And you start to explain the problem, and the penny drops, and you get the answer. If there's anything that can, you know, be an icebreaker or a visual prompt to help support that and open things up, then absolutely,
I do have a question, if I may, as well. I don't know if you guys heard, but there is such a thing that everybody has a mental or emotional home. It's the emotional state that you always come back to in a like a challenging situation, or a situation that is different all of a sudden. If you get like interesting news, or if you're driving and somebody hits your car, or I don't know, you stop at the gunpoint or something, and your first reaction or your emotional home would be either anger or, I don't know, happiness or fear or something. So I wonder, when I was listening to your story, Phil, do you think you have an emotional home, and what was your first reaction when you know, were made redundant, and when you just put a mortgage on and all
that? To be honest, at the time it was basically just fear, and it was fear motivation that made me have to do all that. But now being made redundant is just more normal. I've been made redundant loads of times, but yeah, so certainly at that point it triggered a lot of fear, and in its own funny way, that was actually quite good, because you think, right, I've got to make the next month's mortgage payment, just get busy, and you've just got to go, right, what can I do? Back then, back then you didn't even advertise on the internet. I think I had to put a postcard in the local newsagent or something. Pretty ancient. And then you know, so but I think my emotional home at that point was definitely fear, and I think it still is, for trying something new that doesn't resonate with me, if that makes sense. And I just need to listen to that more, because it's always good to try new things and explore new things, but it's got to resonate with you. If it doesn't resonate with you, then what's the point of trying it, if that makes sense? If you always have a passion for doing art or for anything, and just do it, but it's got to resonate with you, I guess. So yeah. Don't know, did that answer your question, sort of?
Yeah, I think it does.
It was fear. So hopefully moving on to something more grounded than fear now, though. Cool. Lovely to see you, by the way.
We're getting close to the end now. One of the things is I need to have a chat with you because I've really found that interview with Darwin Radio inspiring. So we'll have to have a talk and see if we could put that on our YouTube as well, if we're allowed to do that. And if we do, if you want to go and subscribe to YouTube Potentialisation, there's only the one video from last week so far, but all of these will be recorded and we'll put them all up there as well. But we'll see if we can get Phil's other interview on there. But we might have to ask permission, I guess, with Darwin Radio or something.
I've already got it, and they said
okay.
Absolutely, yeah, we can share it, and because it's all part of their health and well-being program, and everything like that. So they're more than happy for us to share it and everything. So but yeah, really enjoyed doing that interview actually.
Yeah, so we'll do that in the next few days or so, and please go and subscribe to that YouTube channel. If you, Phil, want to drop your contact details into the meeting, into the chat,
yeah,
I'll stop the recording in a minute, but then we'll let everybody stay on a couple of minutes if they want to try and pick up your contact details.
I've already stuck them on.
Oh, have you? Sorry, I'm not keeping up because I'm asking questions.
No, that's cool. That's cool. I've put them in. So I've put the potentialisation thing for Facebook, for the Facebook group, the LinkedIn group, and I put yours on as well, John. Just our
Great, that's brilliant
stuff. So
have you done that, or have you just sent it to me? Oh no.
Oh no, I'm not sure.
Can other people see that? I can't see that.
God, no, sorry. I've put it in the wrong thing.
You have to send it to everyone. You know, at the bottom in chat.
Right, got it. Hold on. There. How about that?
Are you all right when I turn this into a video for YouTube if I actually put a closing slide on and put it on? Because it won't show the chat in there. But if I put your LinkedIn,
yeah, sure,
on the end of the video, so everybody that if you want to get that notification and have a look at that. And it's 8 o'clock, so we're going to try and keep to time. So Phil, thank you very much for all that fascinating stories about all the different things you've done.
No, thank you very much for having me on. It was really good, and thanks everybody for coming and joining in and all the questions and everything. It was really good, and you know, by all means, get in touch if I can be of any help or support to anyone.
And I'm looking forward to a whole series of these interviews. I'll be able to listen much more because I'll be watching the chat while you interview the various speakers.
I'll be doing the interviewing next week. Yes. So who's on next week?
We have got Dr. Darren Stevens talking about how we construct our personalities. He's sent me some overview, and he's saying that even in psychological circles, he's quite challenging because he believes that we actually construct most of our personality, or even all of it, I think he might say, as opposed to various other psychologists that believe we've got rather innate, like personality traits built in that we can't change. But he's certainly talking about learning to understand ourselves much better so that we can make more effective choices rather than being driven by what we've learned when we were younger or what we were born with, as it were. So I'm really looking forward to that. We'll have to
I'll be asking him plenty of questions then.
Cool. So thank you, everybody.